We are live for day 24 of our Business Growth Action Plan Challenge. Thank you so much for coming on. I am Michelle O'Connor, and I'm your business growth strategist. And over the past 24 days, one of the things that we have been doing is walking through the various aspects of a strategic plan with you as the CEO and the founder, helping you to identify how it is that you're going to be growing your business going into 2025, 2026, and the aim is to have you complete your strategic plans before you go off for the holidays. So if you've been journeying with us over the past 3 weeks, I want to thank you. And we're coming on to the last week. And for this week, I have been talking to your managers about how to plan, talking about how to develop a risk register. Now, a lot of persons or a few persons have asked, what is a risk register? And it made me realize that this conversation is very important and it's needed because we often jump into or we develop our plans and then we say these are the things we're going to be doing, and we don't sometimes take the time to identify what could prevent us from achieving those goals. And that's a conversation we're having today. So if you are a CEO or a founder and you're joining, go ahead and just let me know in the comments. And if you know anyone who is a CEO, have them join, share this with them. I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So we are going to be jumping into it. I value your time. And again, I thank you for coming on. So today we're talking about risk register. And you may ask, what is a risk register? Now, while I have these pointers up, I would hasten to say that when you think about a risk, I want you to think about it the very same way you're going on a journey. You're traveling to a particular destination, and what you have done is you've identified what could prevent you from getting to your destination at the desired time. So you want to get there for 1, you decide you're going to leave home at 12. Okay, what's happening? You start thinking about, is there any particular event that's occurring in this space that could prevent me from getting there at that time? That is exactly what you want to do for your business goals. So it helps you to identify what could derail your plan from becoming a reality, how the risk impacts your business. We're going to talk about that as we go through what steps you need to take to prevent or manage the risk. We can't prevent everything, but maybe we can implement something that would help us to manage this risk if it becomes a reality. Because the truth is, a lot of these risks sometimes are external to our business and we don't have control over it. And if you've identified the risk, I'm all about ownership, and we talk a lot about that over the past 3 weeks. Who is responsible for managing the risk and what action are we going to take? Now, another thing that I want you to think about is why you need one. When we develop a plan, this is not one that is fancy or one that a lot of persons take on, but I want you to really think about it, why it's important. Your planning is incomplete without the awareness of risk. This, I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but this is going to be the thing that allows you to be proactive in your actions. I already know that if I am going on a certain kind of diet, whether I'm gaining weight, losing weight, and I have the food that I don't need right in front of me, that may be that could derail my plans. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, that's no problem. I am happy you're here, and I hope you get a lot from being here. And the replay is always up. You can always look at it going, when you have some more time. Your planning is incomplete without the risk. So I want you to think about it. I probably should have taken out this image to make it a little bit bigger, but I hope you can see clearly. You have goals, you have your initiatives, and this is where you want to get to. In between that is the risk that could derail you from achieving your goal, and that is what I'm going to walk you through, help you to identify it. It reduces surprises and last minute emergencies, and I'm all about helping you to show up with more ease and less overwhelm. If you have a risk register that I'll show you in the end and you're monitoring it, then you're taking proactive actions and you're not oh my God, I'm surprised by this, when it was already there. You knew that there was going to be some changes in your accounting reporting. You knew that there was going to be some tariffs. You knew the interest rate was going to fluctuate. Those things are the things that you're taking and you're having a conversation with your team and about it. Hey, Charles, thank you so much for coming on all the way from Hong Kong. I truly appreciate it. It reduces, it helps CEOs to allocate resources wisely. If you know the risk that is going to be impacting your business, you're assigning this to one of your managers or your CEOs, and that is now how you develop your initiatives and how you're going to be monitoring going forward. It strengthens your execution. We're focusing on execution this week. And your risk register is another thing that also helps you to see what could prevent something from happening. When we talk about execution, which is the area that gets a bottleneck in organizations, what you find happening is when you haven't identified a risk the moment, and that now pauses the action that you would have taken, and now you are derailed. So when you want to strengthen your execution, you're thinking, you're being proactive, and you're thinking about the things that are coming. Yes, Jasmine, more companies need to develop the risk register. I completely agree. And one of the things, it makes sense knowing the possible risks before commencing or undertaking foundational critical initiatives. It's very, very important. And I think it's one of the reasons I decided to focus on this. I think it's missing. We stop at, a lot of CEOs stop at developing a goal. And then you have a smaller percentage that actually creates the execution plan. And within the execution plan, the percentage of persons who develop a risk register is even smaller. So I'm hoping that persons will be able to watch the replay even if they're not here. It supports better decision making. You're not making decisions from emotion, but you're using information that you already have to support your decision making process. So let's talk about, how do you create a risk register? You want to, I have this list here because if you're just joining or if you've been here, we've been going for 24 days live talking about how to develop your strategic plan for 2026. And over the past 3 weeks, these are some of the areas that we focused on. We've developed sales and growth initiatives. We've assessed, or we've analyzed our SWOT. We've looked at what worked and what didn't work. We also looked at our environmental scan. What could possibly be happening in our economy at a macro level that could impact our business? And we looked at our competition. What we did from there is that we developed some initiatives. So we're taking it from that standpoint. You've developed your initiatives. I now want you to look at those initiatives, your high priority initiative, and assess if there's any potential risk. And this is how you're going to do it. Once you've identified, and I'm going to be using an example, a sales initiative that we developed over the past 3 weeks, you want to look at the initiative and you're asking yourself, if this risk, what would happen? What would be the impact on revenue, or customer experience, or timelines, or team capacity? And we can just take one. You may have a plan to say you're ramping up your resources, but you know AI is here, and you're looking at it. How is AI going to impact how we move ahead with this particular plan? You're asking, how is it impacting your revenue? Maybe it's your expenses, customer experience. If we don't have the people, or if our people are communicating with a robot, what would that do to our customer experience? And you're developing a plan for that. That is why you have found that these AI tools have become more personable. I did a full interview the other day with an AI, and I was very impressed. It felt like I was talking to a human being. But that is what happens when you think about the risk, you develop a plan, you implement that plan, and then now you're able to take action. You're going to be assigning your managers, you're going to be assigning actions to manage or mitigate. You can't prevent everything, but how can you work around it? That's really what this is. What can we do now to reduce the risk? What must we monitor weekly? who needs to be involved. This is important as you go through your execution process. And as sign owners, do not leave your initiatives, whether for risk or anything else, to someone. We need a role, and after you have a role, we need a name. I encourage having a role as your organization grows or it changes. You add the name to it, but your plan, as I've shared, is a communication tool. As such, you want to be able to share this with anyone, an investor. You're going to the bank for a loan, you're applying for a grant, you're employing a new team member, you're sharing your plan with them. Set frequency for reviews. How often are we going to be reviewing this risk register? Is this weekly? Is this monthly? And who is doing it? And we spoke about your meetings, so at least you know what you need to review. So here are the examples that I have, and I do hope that you're able to see them. I feel like I have too many on one page, but let me know in the comments if it's clear. I can easily make a change. So let's talk about, I'm going to choose a few. Let's look at economic slowdown may reduce client spending. So if persons are holding back on what they're spending and you have a product that you require consumers to spend on, the impact on your a slower sales cycle or reduced income. Okay, what am I going to do? Because I can't go and tell people to spend their money if they're not in a position to do so. So what I'm going to do is, let's talk about diversifying our services, strengthening our retention. So we already have clients who were willing to spend with us. Now, let me see what strategies can we develop to retain those clients or to get them to spend more. So maybe your strategy now shifts from outward to inward. That is something that it allows you to do. And it's just an example, guys. Depending on the size of your organization, you may change, who is focusing on what. But let's say the CEO is focusing on this. How often are we going to review this? Quarterly. And we did a whole session on KPIs and measures, because you want to measure. Maybe you want to now add retention as a KPI if you didn't have it before. Create flexible payment options. I know while I was in finance during COVID, this was one of the things that we had to do. The risk was here that we had a pandemic upon us. At the time, it wasn't affected our country, but we had sat down and thought about it. And for persons who had loans, let's look at moratoriums or flexible payment options. Any questions or comments thus far? Any questions or comments? Okay, let's continue. That's one example. Competitor increases their market spend. So maybe for you, based on the budget that you have, increasing your market spend may not be an option, but your competitor is doing it. How could this impact our goals that we have? It would reduce our visibility, maybe lower lead generation. And you want to talk about this with your team. As I've shared, we've been doing this for 24 days. So in one of our previous lives, one of the things that we talk about was lead generation. So if you had set a target for to generate a certain number of leads, when you look at your risk register, you're thinking, okay, our lead generation activities could be impacted. What are we going to be doing? Let's increase messaging, increase the consistency of our content, and run more targeted campaigns. Your marketing lead is owning that, and you're reviewing this on a monthly basis. These, remember what we shared earlier, understanding, developing a robust risk register is going to help you to be proactive in the actions that you're taking. Regulatory or compliance changes. You don't have control over what is decided where this is, so you now need to adjust your processes quickly. You have someone on your team, or you hire someone to do a research to understand what regulatory changes are coming that could possibly impact our business, impact the product or service that we're delivering. You're going to be monitoring the policy updates, and you're maintaining some SOPs. Your CEO is in charge of this, and you're reviewing this on a quarterly basis. So these are some examples of how you want to think about. So first you start with the goal. which of you look at your initiative list and you're asking yourself the questions that we identified earlier. So let's go over a few more. I have a few more on the next page. I just had a conversation. I was talking to, I was having a collaborating conversation with someone from Israel just now, and this is one of the things that he was sharing with me. You know, Michelle, sometimes I make a post on LinkedIn and I'm getting 20,000 impressions. I make something similar the next day and I'm getting 5,000. I don't understand. So the algorithms changes on the social media platform. So when you developed your plan and you probably were saying to yourself, you know, I am going to be I've been getting 20,000 impressions, so therefore I'll continue. And it changes, what happens. Charles is asking, what about the likelihood of the risk happening? High, medium, low. Yes, I agree with that. That is another column that we can add, because this is now what is going to help you with prioritization. So I would definitely include that as one of the columns. And what we did, I'm trying to remember, we did a live a few days ago. We spoke about how to prioritize your initiatives. What we would then do once we've completed register is assign the priority level, and that now becomes an initiative that goes into our overall initiative list that we're doing. So we would have created an initiative list, and you know what you're doing in quarter one, quarter two, quarter three, quarter four, the 4 quarters for the year, depending on when your financial year starts. Once you've completed your risk register, you add priority to the list, and that now becomes a part of your quarterly initiatives that you're monitoring. So completely agree that this is an important aspect of it, Charles. All right, so let's continue. Right, so we're saying algorithms could have changed. You have a lower organic reach and weaker lead flow. So your content, whether email or on social media or newsletters, they're not reaching your clients in the way that you predicted. You want to strengthen the channels that you already own, because now you have control over it. Whereas when you're on other people's platform, you're dependent on what's happening with the algorithm. What can we do with our emails, or what can we do with our website? How can we, enhance that, or do we need to diversify? That is something that you want to look at. Increased competition from AI-enabled service providers. This is something that I think everybody is looking at. And next week, I'm hosting a live on developing your AI strategy. Now, this could put some pressure on pricing and value differentiation. I'm asking my clients, what are you using AI to do? Because I think it's a world where we should all be thinking about, how do we integrate AI? How do we support our clients in understanding how to use it? I think they would find that valuable. The strategy that you're using to mitigate or to manage, or in this case, you're managing it, integrating AI tools internally, and highlight the unique strategic point that you can use it from. So I'm not just avoiding, I'm not just saying I'm not going to be using AI. AI is here. How can I now help my clients to understand how to use it? Let me choose another one. Let's use cybersecurity threats. I recently had a conversation with a lawyer, and she was talking about how the importance of us developing, I don't remember what she called it, but it's really ensuring that our social or online footprint is somewhere and is protected. There are persons who this is their job, cybersecurity. Let's look at what would happen if somebody took over our website. It disrupts your operation, and you have loss of trust from your clients, because your clients now don't feel that they're in a safe space. It's almost like if you are in a company that was robbed, somebody come and hold up the company, you're thinking about the security. Is it safe to be here? You want to strengthen your security protocols, conduct your annual tech audits. And something that I want to remind persons about, when you think about developing your risk register, it impacts your budget. Your entire strategic and execution plan is not signed off nor complete until you have done the entire process. Now, let's take this as an example. If you are going to be strengthening your security protocols and you have deemed this as high, because the more persons are online I often remind persons that when we remember this, when we are online, we are strategizing how we're going to be developing and enhancing and growing our business. Persons who are hackers, they're doing the very same thing. This is their job. That's what they do. As such, the more persons go online, the more it's now more important that you have a plan to manage and to protect your data and your content. And especially if you have clients, you want to make sure that your clients feel safe. So if you're going to be strengthening your security protocol, this might be an expense. This is a cost to you. So what it is that you're going to do. And talent sabotage in the market, it's harder to find skilled persons. You're going to be creating internal training pathways and investing in upskilling. And this is also important in the era that we're in. And the reason I'm saying that, I was listening to someone talk the other day. One of the things she was saying is employment is going to be looking differently. You may have persons who are leaving university, more persons that are looking, what can I invent and what can I create, what can I build? And maybe the percentage of persons who are looking to just work with one organization, that might change. We don't know. We can only predict based on the data that we currently have. So you want to think about how the employment or how your resources is going to be looking differently. And though that's just an example, any questions or any other feedback you have? As you know, it's a challenge. So each day at the end of the challenge, I want you to go through and complete the activity for the day, complete your risk register for your priority initiative, which goes back to what Charles had asked earlier. Once you have completed that, you're going to now be prioritizing what is important from your initiatives and which one of these risks do I need to pay attention to right now. So that's your activity for today. And I'm inviting you to join us tomorrow if we don't have any more questions. Tomorrow we're talking about performance review and coaching for execution. If it is that you're not monitoring the things that you're documenting, you're not checking them, that could be a challenge. So I want you to join us for that tomorrow. But any questions on creating your risk register? I hope that was clear and I hope you got something from it. Remember, you want to think about the things that could I just gave you a few examples here. It could be your resources. When I worked through my plan for 2026, I identified that time and resources is going to be a challenge. And then I started to think of it. So let me give you an example when I talk about resources. In our business as consultants and entrepreneurs, and maybe you're a salesperson, it can be different. One of the things that can happen is your time, you have this much time and it's 24 hours in a day. And if you are being pulled into many different directions, it means you need to develop a strategy. So let me give you an example. If you need to develop leads, you need to reach out to 20 companies per week. If you aren't able to do one-to-one, you could think, okay, time, this is going to be a challenge. This could prevent me from achieving this goal. Here's what I'm going to do. I am going to target the one-to-many. Let me target someone who is already serving my clients, develop a partnership so that now reduces the time that I'm taking to reach out to one person. Right, so that's something. Charles is asking, can a risk register become too complex, causing paralysis of analysis? This is something that I think a lot of persons get into, and that is why I encourage you. The first thing that you want to do is prioritize the goals that you are focusing on for the year. These are the initiatives that I'm going to be focusing on, and from those priority initiatives, you're asking yourselves, are there any risks that could prevent us from achieving that goal? And I would also say that sometimes analysis paralysis comes based on the team that you're working with, and you need a very strong execution person to lead and facilitate those discussions to say, okay, we're going to be taking this on, and you move forward. However, start from identifying what your priority initiatives are, identify the risk, and it's a register that you're monitoring. So you're not doing anything right now. You're monitoring it on a weekly basis. It's a part of your execution meeting agenda as well. I did a live on that. So it can happen, but you need somebody who is strong in the room to know when to make a call to say, okay, guys, we're going to be stopping here, and not make it complex. The only other column I would add from what I shared earlier is what you asked about, which is the priority levels. Hope that answers it. Charles, let me know. Another comment here. This is a very critical and definite subject. I'm glad I came in. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for the clarity that you have shared so far. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. We have another question. Should you complete a risk register for each functional area? I would say that when you complete the risk register, this can be yes and no. When you complete the risk register at the corporate level, say you complete your initiatives at the corporate level, this risk register that you assign to your main initiatives are handed down to your various levels, to the various levels in your organization. And then they now are looking at it from their vantage point. I hope that makes sense. So let's look at I'm going to be taking, let me take one of the initiatives that I have here to use as an example to answer this question. So let's take the one that we had on competition increasing their market spend. This could reduce visibility and lower lead generation. From looking at those two, I am seeing that this is affecting both marketing and it's also affecting my sales team. When we hand this over to marketing, marketing is looking on it from a standpoint of we need to increase the messaging. What can we do? The sales team already knows that they are depending on marketing to do that work. They don't necessarily have an initiative. They don't necessarily have something that they're doing, but they are aware. So they're looking out for some kind of change or impact from marketing. Let me know if that answers the question. Where you also have different levels in the organization, but it's not really necessary. If you create it at the corporate level, that register goes down to all the team members. So you don't need to be doing it over for all levels in the organization. But once you create the register, that's why it's important that you're assigning owners. When you assign the owners, that is what now helps you to hand over marketing, CEO, sales. It helps you to share it accordingly. I hope that answers your question, Marlon. You can let me know. Any more questions? I'll just stick around to see if there are any other questions on this. As I shared earlier, I know for sure that this does. It helps you with your budgeting. And, as I said, if you need to get cybersecurity, that's going to be a cost. So you don't create your budget and then this thing pops up in the middle of the year and it's like, oh my God, where are we going to get the money from? But you had planned for it. So you already know that it is coming. I think that is important for persons to remember. Just sticking around, seeing that we're getting some questions. Let me know if I answered your question clearly, Marlon, and if there are any other questions. Keep it simple, guys. We know some of the things, depending on the size of your organization, you may have a compliance department. And this is one of the things that we implemented. When departments are completing their plan, so say you have a large organization and you are in specific roles, you have a marketing department, operation, compliance, all those teams are thinking about risk. Your compliance team may be managing all the compliance and regulatory risk. If you have a risk manager, they're owning this part of the work. They are thinking about operational and strategic. We didn't even get into that because I didn't want it to be too complicated. That can be for another day because you have different types of risk that can affect the organization. But if you're developing your plan and you don't have a risk department, then this is just how you can think about it. But if you have a risk department, if you look at the structure of that department, you have somebody who is managing operational risk, market risk, you name it. But just to take it from an initiative standpoint, you can look at each initiative and see what risk is going to be affecting it. You're welcome. You're welcome, Marlon. Any other questions? Any other questions? But thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for engaging. Go ahead and share this live with someone that you know you may need. And I often share that if it is that you are developing your plan, I've asked the question: have you developed your strategic plan for 2026? If not, and you would love some support, that is my area of expertise. I'm inviting you to go ahead and schedule a call with me, and let's get your strategic plan done. This week, one of the things that we focused on was talking to the managers. So you, as a CEO and the founder, you've created the plan. Now you're going to be handing it off to the functional areas, the leaders of those areas to execute. But what we found is that also stalls execution because they don't know how to plan. So we did a whole 3 days on how to plan. And today we're talking about risk. And tomorrow I'm going to be sharing with you, now that you have created your plan, you've assigned your owners, let's talk about coaching and performance management, because this is now an important part of execution. If you're not coaching, you're not managing the performance, then things stall. It's a surprise. We haven't met our target, or we are meeting our target. We don't know what's working for us, so we know what to repeat. So thanks again for joining. If no more questions, I'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I am Michelle O'Connor, your business growth strategist, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.